Welcome to Learn Wealthy, your go-to channel for real estate insights, market charts, and golden opportunity. Let's build wealth together.
Hey everyone, welcome back to your show, Learn Wealthy. I'm your host, James Santiago. Today, we're diving into the new PCE numbers, what they mean for the economy, and why the Fed might be acting a little too soon on cutting interest rates, even though they haven't hit their 2% inflation goal yet. Buckle up because we're about to break this down. Alright, first things first, what exactly is this PCE? The PCE stands for Personal Consumption Expenditures, and it's one of the Fed's favorite ways to track inflation. So in this channel, we've recently talked about CPI, and this is a whole different thing. Basically, it measures the prices that people in the US pay for goods and services. But the key here is that it doesn't just look at the stuff you buy, it also takes into account things like healthcare costs that are paid by insurance or the government on your behalf. The PCE is known for being a bit more comprehensive than the more familiar CPI or Consumer Price Index. So what's the difference between the PCE and the CPI? While they both measure inflation, they do it in different ways. CPI focuses on more out-of-pocket costs for consumers, like the price you pay at the grocery store, gas station, or when you buy clothes. PCE, on the other hand, takes a broader view. It includes the costs that aren't directly coming out of your pocket, like employer-paid healthcare or government services. Plus, it gives more weight to changing consumer behavior, meaning if beef prices go up and people start buying chicken, instead the PCE adjusts for that. The CPI doesn't. Now, you can see why the Fed prefers PCE. It's a bit more flexible and holistic when looking at the economy. Now let's get into the latest numbers. The new PCE data that came out a couple of days ago is for August 2024. It shows that inflation increased by 2.2% year over year, which is down slightly from the 2.5% we saw in July. While inflation has been cooling, it's still above the Fed's 2% target, which means inflation is not quite under control yet. The core PCE, which strips out volatile food and energy prices, is still elevated, showing the stubbornness of price increases in areas like services. The Fed needs to get this number down, but here's the twist. They've started cutting rates anyway. Now here's where it gets silly. The Fed is already cutting rates, recently by 50 basis points. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't they just say the target is 2% inflation? Why are they cutting rates before we even get there? The answer is because they're worried about something else: unemployment and the threat of a looming recession. The Fed is stuck in this balancing act. On one hand, they need to get inflation down their target. But on the other hand, they don't want to crash the economy into recession by keeping rates high for too long. Because the Fed really looks into the Phillips curve, even though the Phillips curve has already been debunked by periods of stagflation. They've been raising rates aggressively, but the economy is showing signs of slowing down. Unemployment, while still kind of low historically, already triggered the SOMS rule and could still be rising, and the Fed doesn't want to risk a deep recession. So they're getting nervous, even though inflation hasn't quite hit that 2% sweet spot. But here's the risk: if they cut rates too early, they could reignite inflation. It's like trying to take cookies out of the oven before they're fully baked. They might look done on the outside, but on the inside, things are still a bit undercooked. By cutting rates before hitting their 2% inflation target, the Fed risks undoing all the progress they've made so far. Inflation could start creeping back up, and they could be right back at 9% before you know it. Plus, cutting rates sends a signal to markets and consumers that things might be worse than they appear. It's like the Fed saying, we're more worried about a recession than inflation at this point. But I guess the Fed chair and Fed speakers can't be that honest, especially on the mainstream news. So that's where we're at. The latest PCE data shows inflation is still above the Fed's 2% target, which they pulled out of their rears. Where in the economic world or universe does it say that 2% is economic nirvana and the economy will be singing kumbaya if the economy is 2%? And even though the Fed hasn't hit this 2% target, the Fed has already cut rates to a fairly huge 50 basis points. Rate cuts shows they're worried about a slowdown in the economy and rising unemployment. It's a tricky situation, but cutting rates too soon could lead to bigger problems down the road. What do you think? Should the Fed hold the line until the inflation really hits that 2% goal? Or are they right to cut rates to avoid a recession? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you found value in this video. For more finance, investing, real estate, and macroeconomics, let's all learn wealthy together.